All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Vegetto, and I'm going to talk about my project, which is called Collective Congress, a web platform for democracy. So the basic idea is I'm trying to make a group management system that provides a customizable and extensible framework for making democratic decisions on a regular basis. Sounds cool, right? So the the question I'm trying to answer is, how can data be democratically controlled? And by democratically controlled, I don't just mean like everybody can change it, everybody has access to it. You know, that's easy enough to do. What I'm talking about is having data controlled such that it can only be changed if there's a consensus among the users to change it. And so just to recap my last presentation, what I'm trying to do with this project is change the internet from something like this to something more like this. And I'm planning to do that with a system that looks something like this. Yeah, I just wanted to flash those images without talking about it. So I'm implementing this project using Java with Google Web Toolkit, which is a Java web development framework. This is the first major project I've done in Google Web Toolkit, and so far it's working out really well. So I'd recommend Google Web Toolkit for anybody who likes Java and wants to get into web development. Yeah, so like I mentioned, this is about controlling data democratically, and so I want it to be as extensible as possible. So you can have that data can be any kind of data. So to help with the extensibility, I've got all my different types of data under one big class hierarchy. I show this diagram every time I present it, and it's different each time, but I think it's going to stay relatively stable now. But anyway. So I've also got another type of hierarchy in the system I use to store the data. So basically I've implemented my own sort of file system where you've got a root directory with subdirectories, and so like at the top level I've got a folder for users, groups, news, and commands. I'll get to the commands in a moment. But also each group will have its own sort of file system that has votes, laws, and titles stored underneath it. So this gives me like a nice, easy way of storing the data. And the way I implement it is each subfolder has a hash map that maps strings to items. So like each piece of data has an ID and also a path, like you have in a file system. So this allows you to access all the data in constant time, which is always nice. So I focused this semester on working on what I'm calling the Collective Congress Protocol, or CCP, not to be confused with the Chinese Communist Party. So basically this is like a command line interface for my site. So like any possible change you would want to make to your data can be made through one of these commands. And so the point of this is not only to enable for the future to allow like interfacing with other software, but also it helps with the idea of voting, because like I want the users of my site to be able to make any change that they want to make through a vote. And obviously it would take a while to implement a separate vote for every type of change. So instead, the votes, what they do is, like the result of the vote will be one of these commands. So like after a vote is resolved, I just generate that command and then execute the command, and it makes the appropriate changes. So these are like the basic commands, like the atomic commands that can't be reduced to anything else. But on top of that, I've started to generate a whole set of what you could call derived commands. And these all get interpreted into these basic commands. Yeah. So I guess I'll do a quick demo now. Relatively quick. So I've got, basically I've got like a little terminal here, so I can get a list of commands, hopefully. Sometimes it takes a while to, there we go. So those are all the commands I have implemented right now. I'm going to go ahead and log in as the admin. And so I've also got a very basic GUI right now that lets you explore through this file system. So this is the top level of the file system. So I've got commands, news, users, groups. So I can see all those commands here. You know, I've got my users. Not sure. There we go. So anyway, this is just like think of it like a file browser, like in Windows. So I'm going to go ahead and register as a new user. And log in. And now that new user showed up there. So now I'm going to show you some of these commands. So first I'm going to add a group called RCOS, and I'm going to give it a description with the text parameter. And so now if I go to groups, I can see that group there. And so if I do a get on groups/RCOS, that's just going to print out the little description I just entered. So now I'm going to make Bob a member of RCOS. And you can see there's 2 lines there, and that's because the way I'm keeping track of titles and group membership is basically the user has a link to the group, and the group also has a link to the user, because it's like a many-to-many mapping. So that's why I've got these 2 separate link items. So if I do a get on Bob, I can now see that he's a member of RCOS. So now I'm going to make a new title inside of RCOS. And I'm going to give it an ID and a description. And now I'm going to do a command called the elect command. This is currently the most complex command I have. And what this is going to do is it's going to start a 3-stage voting process for this title called Führer. And so the 3 stages are nomination, selection, and confirmation. So first, people will get to nominate members of RCOS that they think deserve this title. After that, the members of RCOS will vote from a set of choices, the people who have been nominated. And then finally, after the selection vote, the person who got the most votes will have to get confirmed with a majority saying yes, they should get the title. So this is just one example of like a multi-stage voting process you could have in this system. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the selection. And that added a new vote to the RCOS votes called Führer nomination. So I'm going to go ahead and vote on that by specifying a value of Bob, which means I'm nominating myself. And if there are other users, they could also nominate other people. But for now, I'll just have Bob be the only candidate. So now I'm going to resolve the nomination vote, and that's going to result in a selection vote. So normally the resolving of the votes would happen automatically from like a timer or something, or when everybody's voted, but for now I'm just doing it manually. So I think you get where this is going. So I'm going to vote again for myself. So each title can have like a set of commands associated with it. So like normally, I haven't implemented the permission system yet, but normally, you know, like it's not like any user can just run any command. You have to have permissions to run that command. So the way you can like give the holder of a title power is just by giving them more commands, which lets them make more changes to the persistent data. Yeah, so that's the end of the demo. So I'm going to be working on this over the summer. So if you're going to be here, you'll get to see this progress. If not, expect to see some awesome stuff next fall. I've got a lot of ideas for this, including a discussion system with feedback, a currency system with contracts between groups and users, embeddable elements that you can embed in third-party sites with democratically controlled content. And finally, I want to make a fully democratic system of web development where you can actually vote on code changes that will automatically get deployed into the system. Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. So I'm not sure how long that was, but that's all I got for today. So thank you.
Questions?
Yeah.
So two things. You said you're talking about the file system, I guess, for like groups and users. Are you actually using a database behind it, or is it actually on the file system? What was your reasoning behind that?
It's not actually using the file system. And right now, I actually don't have any kind of database. So like right now, if I restart the server, I lose all the data. So I need to implement the database integration. But the way it's stored actually is like in actual Java code. Like I have a class called the container class, which has a hash map from strings to other items, which can also be containers. So it's like a recursive hierarchy of hash maps within hash maps, basically.
Okay. And the second thing is, for the protocol, couldn't you just also just use HTTP and just have like a web protocol that people just get and post to instead of just custom protocol? Just curious.
That may be true. I'm not very familiar with the get and post protocol. So I don't know, maybe I could integrate that, but I just wanted to make my own thing, so I knew everything was working out how I wanted it.
So you were talking about the three-stage voting process, which was, I guess the first one was like call for a vote, and then nominations, and then like voting. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be able to be like changed for like if one group decides like they don't want like if they nominate somebody, they can't decline a nomination, or like just stuff like that.
Right.
Does that to be able to be like changed?
Yeah, that was just one example of like a system you could have. Like that elect command is just like a combination of other commands. Like basically, like it has an add vote command, and then the vote, like each vote has a command that'll get executed when the vote is resolved. So like it adds a vote whose command is to add another vote, whose command is to add another vote, whose command is to assign a title. So it's like a three-nested thing. But you could easily like define your own system just by like changing that command.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're interested in what Jeff was talking about, I would read into REST, R-E-S-T. The REST API involves all the posts, gets. There's also a delete output. And so yeah, it's just a very native way of communicating over the web. Might be something worth looking into.
Alright, yeah, looking at it.
Okay, so earlier we heard about hot swappable C++ code. I was wondering, do you think there'll be a way to like vote on, let's just upload a new version of the Java backend?
Well, yeah, that's the idea.
Okay. So like if I say, okay, I've just made a brand new collective Congress, it has no voting. Let's vote on to see if we can push that up.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it might be that only like little portions of the site can be changed easily, and I don't know, maybe there's some technical limitation to changing the whole entire system at once. But I mean, that's the goal. So, like, you know, since it's an open source project, I guess you could say it's to avoid like a fork in the project dividing it into like two communities. Like instead, I would rather the community to just vote on one fork to adopt for everybody. So, yeah.
You'd like to establish a voting process for that decision?
For the decision of uploading changes? Well, yeah. So I didn't talk about it much in this presentation, but you might remember from the last time, I've got sort of 3 special groups which make up like the government of the site, and so they're the ones who would be voting on these kinds of code changes. And so, you know, like initially I'll probably keep it pretty restricted, so like things aren't just getting changed all the time. But yeah, like depending on what the users want, they'll get to decide what sort of voting process there is for the site.